Hi, everyone, and welcome to the She Said What show. We are talking today about some really important topics, right, Lucy?
Very important, yes.
Okay, I'm so excited that we're finally talking about some of these issues, and I think we should dive into it. So we want to talk about personal development, career development, and really some of the do's and the don'ts that we have learned based on our long experience.
Exactly.
Professionally, right?
That's right.
And so where should we start, Lucy? I mean, I think people are going to be really interested to hear about the progression of our careers. And I think we should talk about that. How do we start, right? And how do we move up? And how did we end up where we are as a result of the grit, the determination? So Lucy, tell us about your career. How did it start?
So I think when I started after my internship program, working at the station at KSFE, it was really difficult because my career as a journalist, it's driven by men. You know, the top executives are always men, and it's very rare for it to be a woman. So for myself, I was so desperate in getting a job because it was so competitive at the time, and it still currently is. And
I was broadcast journalism.
Yes,
right?
Being a journalist,
Right.
it's very competitive. You have very smart women and men, but in terms of entertainment, in the entertainment industry, it's very difficult. You have thousands of beautiful, smart women competing for that one spot at the station. So for me, one of the things is, luckily I had mentors as an intern, and they always gave me great tips. And I think it's always fantastic to create those bonds with those people and maintain that friendship.
Mm-hmm. I think actually this is a really important point that Lucy's bringing up, which is mentorship, having connections in your business. So tell us more about that. How did you develop those relationships, and how did you grow them, nurture them, and maintain them?
So one of the things is, obviously as a journalist, you get questions like, oh my God, that's amazing, you're working on TV. And the people who actually mentored me gave me these tips like, hey, always make sure not to burn bridges. And, you know, I was 17 at the time, and I didn't really comprehend that. I was like, well, how do you burn a bridge? What do you refer to this, you know? And, you know, they told me, you know, never make enemies in your profession, in our community, because it's so small and everybody talks and everybody knows each other. And I was like, oh, I see. So one of the key elements is maintaining those networking connections, befriending people that you want to remain friends. And obviously these are people who you know that are in the equal level of your life, right? Meaning if they are in the entertainment industry, hey, I'm a reporter, I'm a producer, I want to be friends with this person, because whenever this, you know, publicist or manager is coming in town, they're going to call me and say, hey, I have this celebrity in town. Do you want to interview them? So I picked up, you have to be like a sponge. You have to pick up all of these elements in your career and figure out, you know what, I need to maintain these relationships. I need to be smart about it. And we didn't share our connections, because if you go to another producer or another reporter and you say, hey, can I have so-and-so's phone number? They're going to say no.
Really?
Because you earn that relationship with the person. You cannot just call a publicist and say, hey, by the way, can I have an interview with, I don't know, Ricky Martin? They're going to say, who are you? Why are you calling me? And it doesn't work that way. You bond and you form these relationships. So luckily with each of my jobs, I learned that whenever I was the assistant, you know, and I went to an interview, I became friends with the people. And obviously you have to be nice. You have to be kind. You have to be charming. You have to think fast, because you only have a couple minutes to be in that circle and to befriend them, whether they're going to like you or they're going to hate you.
Right. It's all about first impressions, right?
First impressions are very important. Mm-hmm. If they see that you're timid, you're shy, they probably think she's not going to go anywhere. Why bother with this relationship? right? It has to reciprocate.
Right.
If I'm going to befriend you, if I'm going to give you my cell phone number, you're going to be worthwhile.
Right.
If not, next, because there's hundreds and thousands of people in line. So I had to process. I was hungry. I was determined. And I knew that that was the key to maintain my relationships, my connections, my networking connections with everyone in the industry. So I think, after 20 plus years, I still have those connections and I am friends with those people. And it's wonderful because at a very early age, I had those mentors helping me and guiding me. And I think it's important for you, the listener and the viewer, to understand that if you really, truly, genuinely want something, you have to have the hunger for it. And you have to have the patience, because one day to the next, you're not going to have a phone book full of, all these people. No, it takes time. It's a lot of work.
It does, really. It takes time, and it doesn't matter which profession, which career we're talking about. I do think that one of the most important things that we can possibly do is develop those relationships and network and meet people, give them your phone number and ask for theirs when you actually make a good connection with someone. Think about this as every person that you meet out in the community, on an actual job, in relation to, if you're a lawyer and you're at a deposition, there are a lot of other elements that come into play in terms of the adversarial system that we have for lawyers. But nonetheless, these are all people who can potentially either hire you for another job, open a door for you to be able to connect with another person, send you business. And certainly in my business, if it's opposing counsel, these are people who ultimately are going to be recommending to their clients whether or not to take you seriously, and whether or not to potentially settle your case, and if so, how much, or go to trial, and these kinds of things. So I think it's very important for us, even when it's a connection with somebody that we think at first blush may not be somebody that we really initially automatically like. We always have to be professional. We always have to think about what the ultimate goal is, which is connecting on a positive professional level with others, because this is a very long life, a long career, hopefully, and you're always investing in yourself and in your relationships with other people, because they will pay off, and in the most unexpected ways and at the most unexpected times. So I really agree with your mentor, Lucy, who told you never burn a bridge, and always make sure that the person that you're speaking with has an immediate positive response or reaction just innately to you and their interaction with you.
Exactly. And I think it's so important to wake up in the morning. If you're going to an event, if you're going to work, you will meet people unexpectedly on a certain day. It may not be planned. Back then, I remember we had the business cards. Back then, It was a big deal to have your business card, right? So I remember walking out of my house every day with the business cards, because you never know who you would meet.
Right.
And nowadays we have, the barcodes. We just exchange our information on a cell phone. But I think people should not be afraid to talk to other people. And I've, throughout my lifetime, I've realized how hard it is for certain people. For myself, it was really easy, to go up to somebody.
Well, you're so reserved.
No, but it's easy for some people and it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's easy to walk into a room by myself and just talk to people. Like, who are you? What are we doing here? Like, what's this, what's going on? And for some people, I have friends, I have family that are like very reserved. They'll walk into a room and they'll walk out. It's like a ghost.
Right.
So you really have to first be prepared to, talk to people, not be afraid, approach them, find out who they are, who they work for, and form that bond. I think that's a really good, way or avenue for you to grow as a professional.
I agree with you. And I think you've hit on something that's really important, and a great tip. Lucy's talking about going and listening, finding out who the other person is. And so I think when people have social anxiety, which so many of us do have, right? One of the things that we can think about when we're going into a group of people or a place where we are not immediately comfortable is just think about finding out about the other people there and asking them open-ended questions. Hi, my name is, and you are, and what do you do?
Exactly.
And how was your day?
Exactly.
And do you, what do you do as a career? What's your business?
Exactly.
And why did you get into that business? What do you love about that business? And what are your favorite projects? And so you just ask them questions and focus on the other person as opposed to focusing on ourselves.
I'm making it on me. Because
Right,
there's some people who do that. You meet them and it's all about them. Me. And realistically, you're just seeing who they are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are just too self-centered about themselves, which is, shocking because you do want to get to know someone. You want to have that conversation. You want to know who they are.
Right. But also when we ask people about themselves and when we listen and we're active listeners and we respond, oh, you do this. Oh, you're a broadcast journalist. That's amazing. How old were you when you knew that you wanted to go into that business? And, who's been your favorite celebrity and to interview and who was your first interview? It's easy to ask questions about another person. And when someone with whom you're speaking is being given the opportunity to talk about themselves, then they feel like it's a great conversation. They're having a great conversation about somebody who actually is interested in them and cares and wants to know and makes them feel good about themselves.
It's a two-way street.
It is.
Right?
It absolutely is. So I think that's one of the ways that we can really help ourselves in these business/social environments is to just focus on the other people and ask questions about them. And then we don't have to be anxious or nervous about ourselves, right?
Exactly, because you're kind of giving that person that little spotlight. So, Genie, how did you start in the legal world? I know you started not as a lawyer, correct?
Oh, no. Well, I know what you're talking about. I started in the legal world as a runner at a law firm when I was in college. And so I was going into courtrooms and taking papers for the judge to sign and this kind of thing. So I became I didn't even know to be anxious about being in a courtroom. I was too young to even realize I should be nervous about being in a courtroom.
Did you have a mentor during this time that you were a runner?
Well, I worked at a law firm and the lawyers for whom I worked would tell me, I need you to go do this, that, and the other, and, just speak to the judge professionally and this kind of thing. But they weren't giving me big picture advice. I knew I was going to law school at that point. But when I was in law school and looking for my first job, and I interviewed with a judge down here in Los Angeles, for a judicial clerkship. For my first year out of law school.
That's a big deal, actually.
It was a big deal, and I flew down. It was the first time I had ever been to Los Angeles by myself, without my family. But
see, you had the drive.
I did,
to come from out of state and go for a job interview with a judge.
Right.
That's a big deal. How old were you at this time?
I think I was probably 24 at this time or so.
That's amazing.
And so, I went to law school here in California, but my dad told me that there were two earthly embodiments of hell, New York City and Los Angeles. And so, he tried to put the fear in me about ever being in Los Angeles.
Or New York.
Yeah, or New York. But I didn't subscribe to that. So I came down to LA and I had this interview. And the fact of the matter is that the judge with whom I was interviewing was a very affable, likable, open, and jovial person. And I was just open and laughed and joked, but we did so in a professional way. And it was that human connection, right, that really mattered. And he told me that he selected me for the clerkship because he felt so comfortable with me. And it was fun to talk with me.
It was easy.
It was easy.
And remember, whoever he was going to hire, it's someone that he deals with daily.
Yeah.
So he figured, oh, I like her presence. She's charming. She's smart. She has a great personality.
Right. And that just really matters. That's what we're talking about, is helping the people that we're speaking with, whether it is actually for an interview or it's just, someone you've just met in a professional or personal setting, helping them feel comfortable with us is really important. And it's a great skill if you're going to be a trial lawyer, if you're going to be a public speaker, if any of these things. I tell you, some people have asked me, what was the most important job you had to prepare you for being a lawyer? And you know what I tell them? Retail sales.
No.
Yeah.
People are harsh, aren't they?
They are harsh. People are harsh. But in retail sales, what we learn that we need to be able to connect immediately.
Because the customer is always right.
And figure out what they want and what they need and listen to them and make them feel comfortable. And I think it's a really important skill. The people skills, the soft skills are actually the most important skills, I think, as we grow and develop in our businesses and careers.
100%. So let me ask you, so when you became a lawyer and you were going to, I don't know, have a job interview as a lawyer at a different firm, how do you give me the dynamics of how much did you ask, or how did you know what to ask? How did you carry yourself in the interview? Did anybody guide you? What are the good tips? Because we want to hear your first job interview as a lawyer.
Okay. So my first job interview as a lawyer was coming out of the clerkship. And actually, the judge for whom I clerked connected me with the people with whom I was having the interview.
See, connections. And networking.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's it.
Okay.
And so when I went and had that interview, I was professional. They knew that I came with a recommendation from a sitting judge. And I tell you, what I did that was wrong was I didn't negotiate the offer. This is a long time ago.
But that was your first real job, quote unquote, interview. So you didn't negotiate. Exactly. Neither did I.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
For my first one.
Much better.
But I went, no, but I think because when you're young and you're hungry, you really just say yes to everything. Take me.
It's true.
So you didn't negotiate your contract. They just said, this is what I'm giving you. Take it or leave it.
Yes, that's the way it came across. And although I'm sure that I could have negotiated, I certainly know that now.
Yeah.
And I don't fail to negotiate anything.
Because you grow and you learn from it.
Yes. And and I will tell you, too, that on reflection, I think that was a big mistake. I do think that it took me a long time, relatively speaking, in my career to get up to the income and earning level that I think I should have been at. So I had to make up that difference. And so it took a while to do that. And I had to, sort of exponentially increase what I was earning by negotiating my salary at different firms along the way while I was still an associate. And it took real time. So one of my tips is you don't just take the first offer. Yeah. And even if they say take it or leave it, you know what? If they're saying take it or leave it, unless you're really clear about the reasons why it's worthwhile to you to take a lower amount for your salary or your hourly rate, and you're making a conscious choice, if you believe that it's take it or leave it, and then you make that calculation, then I would say that's one circumstance where maybe you just take it for a period of time and you take that salary or hourly rate that you're being offered. But if your gut, if your instinct says, I'm being lowballed, guess what? You're right. You are being lowballed because you feel that way. And as a result, you should definitely negotiate. And it may be that you find yourself negotiating yourself out of that opportunity, but that it is you moving into something even better. This happens as well. And I think one of the most important things that I always want people to take from a conversation with me is that life is really iterative. There are even if when one door closes, you do find another that opens, or you open the door yourself.
Always.
And
I agree with that. One door closes, the other one opens. You turn the page, you have a new chapter. I mean, that's
Lucy, the reality is it's up to us to create the opportunity in our lives. It's up to us. Okay.
It is. And it's important. Imagine if you pick up your brain now and you take it back to your 24-year-old self, right? Things would be so dramatically different. But if you didn't have those moments when you were 24 years old, you would not be where you are now.
Yes.
It's through experience and determination and growth. And obviously it's something that obviously resonates with me, because that was me too. When I got my first job, I didn't negotiate anything. I didn't ask like, am I getting a 401k? Am I getting healthcare? I mean, I was just like, sure. Okay, take it. So I think when you're young, you should not be afraid. But the key thing is, if you're not taught or nobody mentors you, you don't know these things as a kid.
Right.
You're green. You're trying to just get in that road with the traffic and trying to make it.
Yep.
So it's not easy, but it has to come from within. You have to make it happen. Someone else is not going to do it for you.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And I think that it's also really important for people to think about the no's, or what some may consider to be failures, right? I think we have to reframe and understand that it's not a failure. It's just a different path. It's a different opportunity. And we have to have what is referred to as the growth mindset.
100%.
Okay?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true.
And so, Lucy, I don't know if you saw this, but just this past week or so, Roger Federer, the amazing, tennis phenomenon, one of the greatest in the world ever. Roger Federer was giving a commencement speech at Dartmouth, I think it was. And part of his story that he shared was that out of his 1,500 some odd matches, he's won approximately 80%. But
that's a good ratio.
Sure. But he said when you break it down to each point, he said even the best in the world have about a 50-50 shot of winning any given point. Their percentage of win on any given point is around 50 to 55%. So every second shot, he said, we're going to lose. And we have to realize that losing a shot, losing a point, losing a match, losing a game, it is just part of the process. Okay?
Exactly.
It is part of the process. And the question is, how do we respond to that? We have to leave that learning experience and focus on the now, take from it what we can, and focus on the now and where are we going from here. And that's the growth mindset.
100%. I love that. I think part of our, where we are in our age as, professionals and through life experiences, I want to teach this stuff to my kids. I want to tell them, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because honestly, those moments when you're young and you're hungry and you're just willing to take anything at any point in time, you have to really analyze and give yourself a worth. Like, you know what? I just can't. Maybe I can give it all, but maybe I'll negotiate. What's the worst thing that can happen? They're going to say no.
Exactly.
Okay. If they say no, okay, well, at least you can say you tried.
Yeah. Well, and there's still places to go from no.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
And yet, it may be the best thing.
Yeah, it is. And, you realize that. But at being older, not at the moment, you take it really personal.
Yeah.
And it's nothing personal, even though sometimes you feel like you got stung, you didn't get the job you desired. Maybe because something else is coming along and It's not at that moment, but it will come. You just have to maintain the responsibility. You have to be proactive. You have to go out every day and think about what positive things are going to happen to me today. You have to stay, positive. You can't get up in the morning and be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? No, change the way you talk to yourself. I sometimes I think we're so hard on ourselves sometimes that we are our biggest critics, and it's natural. I think it's a natural thing, but you have to shift that mentality. You have to be a go-getter. You have to process that in a way where you want to make sure that, you know what, if I didn't get on the road, I'm going to force myself on that road. Yeah. How? I don't know how, but I'm going to do it.
You know what, Lucy, I have to tell you a little story. So when I had my first job as a lawyer after the clerkship, and this is to that issue of, adversity and resilience. So if you can imagine, I turned in the first draft of the first brief I had ever written for the law firm for which I was working.
And how long did that take you?
Oh, I don't even know how long it took. But I'm telling you, I worked so hard on it, and I thought it was really my best effort. And do you know that page or that brief came back with every single page covered in red? Okay, from my boss, and covered in red, and I was horrified. I was so scared at that time about making mistakes. I was so focused on mistakes are fatal, mistakes and fatality. That's pretty much the way I was looking at things. Because a lot of lawyers, you get to the point where you've gone through all of that education and testing, and you come out and it's so competitive, and you're going to lose the job. You remember making, even when we were young, it was like this idea that if we make a mistake,
the world's going to end.
That's going to be the end.
No way.
And that's what I said. I said, oh my gosh, I looked at that, and Lucy,
you're like, I'm going to get fired tomorrow.
I said, I'm not cut out for this. I said, I'm not cut out for this.
To yourself?
To myself. I said, this means I'm not supposed to be a lawyer.
That is hilarious.
How hysterical is that?
Boy, were you wrong.
I was wrong. I was so wrong. I mean, because if you look at what I have done since then, you look back and you say, I kept going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I pursued my passion, and I've done some amazing things for a lot of people, and I'm so proud of being able to help so many people.
But it was your determination. Yeah. Even though when someone tells you, hey, you did this wrong, or no, they close the door, so what? Get up and keep going.
It's really about how we respond.
It is. How you respond, how you grow from it, and how you learn from it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share with you how, when I got my first job at a station, it was one of the stations, and I had my job interview. I showed up, and here I was, trying to be confident, trying to be nice. I already know my stuff. I had my connections. I've been in the industry. And the executive was a male, and he was very kind. He just told me, do you know how to do this? Yes. Do you know that? Yes. Do you have contacts? Oh, yes. Do you do that? He's like, okay, so if I give you a 6:00 news to start tonight, can you do it? He's like, you do the 6:00, the 8:00, and the 11:00. I didn't even negotiate anything. I just said, yes, give it to me. It's me. I'm the one who you need, right? So then he calls the director of the news department. She comes up, and she didn't know why she was being called. She comes into the office, and he says, oh, she walks in and she goes, who's this? And she was very harsh. She was someone that was like, you want to run the other way. She wasn't the nicest person. And he said, oh, you're looking at your new entertainment reporter. She looks at me from head to toe with a straight face, if looks can kill. And here I am smiling. And she turns around to him so slowly. It was like in a movie scene. And she goes, there's no way this girl is going to be in my news department in front of me. And at that moment, I was like, what? One, I wanted to cry because I couldn't believe that someone like that spoke to me in front of the main executive. And in my head, I was saying, stay calm, keep smiling, don't let her pop your bubble, because he wants to hire me, yet she doesn't want to hire me. And he said, no, I'm calling the shots. I'm your boss. She's going to be the entertainment reporter. And that day, she probably wanted to crucify me. And she had to deal with me because I was hired to do it. And she didn't want me in her news station. And she did a lot of things to me that I had to have thick skin and not allow someone to pop my bubble each time. Yes, she was my boss, but I realized that it doesn't matter how someone treats you or what they want or how they expect what they expect from you. As long as you have the knowledge, the experience, and you have the background, you can make your job happen. You can stay in your job. Don't let people make you feel bad, because she did. I wanted to go home and cry, but thankfully it didn't happen. I stayed, with my forefront, smiling. I'm like,
well, it was your determination. You were committed.
I was committed.
You wanted to make the most of the opportunity.
I did, because I saw that I was getting the door open, and I'm like, no, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to allow someone to just say no to me and try to put me down and make me feel uncomfortable in front of the executive, where I guess you want to put me in the spot so I can squirm. And then she says, see, look at how weak she is. And I had to stay strong, smiling. And I was just like, I mean, is there something in particular you want me to do so you can see that I have the experience? I mean, that's what came out of my mouth, but honestly, I wanted to cry and run. But, I think about those moments, and I think about my children.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, wow, I went through this, my first experience as my first job, and my kids are probably going to end up there at some point, maybe not in the, journalism world, but whatever world they come in, there's people who are mean.
Yeah.
They are just mean. And we have to be prepared with our knowledge, with our experience, and how to respond quick. You have to be quick.
You do.
You have to be aware. You have to be alert.
Yes. And in addition to people who may just be mean, we, especially as women, also in business, in professions and careers, just at work, we face some additional challenges.
More
right?
challenges than the normal, human.
And I really want to talk about that, because Lucy, you've faced them. I've faced them.
Yes.
Not only that, but, my daughter also is now exploring what kind of career she wants to pursue, and had a recent conversation in which she's thinking about doing something law related, right?
That's fantastic.
Yes, I'm very proud of her for all reasons, but she had a conversation and was talking with a woman professional in a law related capacity. And kind of a vendor is what we think about them. And so this person explained to my daughter that there are a lot of male lawyers who will be condescending
Always.
towards women.
There's always going to be men condescending women anywhere, in any profession, any part of the world.
Well, wait, Lucy, are we being sexist?
We are not. It's facts. I mean,
I think it is.
It's just a fact.
This is one of the dynamics that we deal with.
It is. Women have to work probably 40% harder than males. I can't even say it. It's like women have to work probably 40% more than just men.
We really have to show up.
We do. We have to show up. We have to be prepared. We have to make sure we do our homework, because my industry was very harsh. It's a male dominant world. Women are,
So is the legal business.
So is the legal business. Many different professions, but I think it's very important to be prepared and not allow any person, any human being put you down just because you're a female.
Right. Well, and I think that there are things that we need to be mindful of. There's certainly advice that I give to younger women lawyers about being a woman in the legal profession.
And what is that? I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that I actually do have to tell women. I feel it's part of my obligation to tell younger women lawyers that there are going to be male lawyers. It's mostly men. They're going to be male lawyers who look at them as an opportunity to date or, have sex. And they don't take them seriously as a professional. And
that is the biggest mistake.
That I tell people?
No, it's wonderful advice, but it's so true. I never wanted to date anybody in my industry because I saw what I saw. I saw how awful they take advantage of the situation. just not just in general, men, if you break up in this relationship that you have with someone that you work with, you're going to have to see them.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work with them. And the awkwardness that it creates, it's awful. It's a lot of unnecessary stress. I mean, it's stressful to be in a relationship already, but to break up and having the whole, your whole professional colleagues know about it, I don't want that. I saw that with my friends, with my colleagues. I was like, oh my God, this is so awkward, so uncomfortable for me to see them in that situation. I would never want to put myself there.
Well, and we go through so much to invest and grow our careers in our professions. And then when some people view us as simply sort of a commodity, something to have, as opposed to something to respect, a person to respect, then what happens is we kind of put some artificial barriers into our own growth, sometimes professionally. If it's not, I definitely met my first husband in law school. So that's different.
That's different than working with him.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, necessarily hooking up with my boss or something like that.
But see, it's okay. I think it's okay. I mean, just even talking
people
about it.
I know, because we're not actually judging people.
We're not.
We're talking about experience and what we've seen.
What we've seen, what we've dealt with.
Own decision.
Exactly. Listen, there's some people who work in the industry, no matter if they're doctors, lawyers, business people, and they date their colleagues.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out.
Sometimes, yeah, absolutely.
It's very rare, but I think the percentage is very low.
And it works out fantastically and beautifully.
Exactly.
Wonderful long-term relationship.
But there are some that is like the mass percentage that it doesn't work out, and it makes everything uncomfortable.
Right. Because what happens,
everybody
who
starts
gets to go
talking.
to the networking events.
Exactly.
Who gets to keep the relationship with the referring attorneys or the, business partners.
And people are going to be talking about it. One of the things that in high school, actually happened in middle school for my son, is his friends had girlfriends, right? When they started dating, it's kiddie love, for heaven's sake.
Of course.
So they're like, oh my God, I have my girlfriend, la la la. So when it came to their school dance, one of his friends broke up and he didn't want to go and attend his school dance anymore because the girl was going to be there and he didn't want to go. And he didn't end up going. And I told my son, can you imagine 5 years from now, you're going to look back. He's going to look back and say, why didn't I go? Because of that moment of not, feeling like, oh my God, she's going to be there. Everybody's talking about it. It's the same concept as an adult.
Yeah.
People avoid those events because the other person's going to be there.
I think one of the things that people could do, and maybe this is, I don't know, maybe it won't work or it will work. But one of the things that people could do is when they're going into potentially a relationship or just to date somebody in their business, they could basically have a conversation before the first, date, or once the first date works out, whichever time they choose, and say, hey, listen, we're both in the same business. And we'd like to pursue dating and see if it goes somewhere or whatever they're going to say about that. But let's agree up front that if this doesn't go anywhere or we don't like this, okay, that's not going to cause a problem in our business because I'm not giving up my business. I'd like to have this wonderful opportunity to spend time with you, but you get to keep your business, I get to keep my business and the relationship. So maybe you just have a conversation up front.
And
that's unrealistic?
That's great. That's great. Because some people, I work with my husband, but it's a whole different dynamic, right? But when you're an employee of a business and you're dating someone, that is we get
into sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment, or it can be just awkward, uncomfortable. It's just, there's so many fish out in the sea, for heaven's sake. Date someone else.
It gets really complicated.
It gets
when
sticky.
it's somebody where you're working.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a boss and there's a difference in the power dynamic, because I handle so many of those cases, and so many, women come to me and say, I felt I didn't have a choice. I had to date this person to be able to keep my job. and I need to, pay my rent or take care of my kids. And so I didn't have a choice. Obviously, we don't want things to go that direction, right?
Yeah, but I think we have to be aware. We have to kind of think 2 steps ahead, like chess.
Yeah.
If I have a relationship in this work environment, what are the repercussions? What's going to happen if it doesn't work out, right?
Exactly.
I like to think 2 steps ahead of everything that I do because I like to know the pros and the cons.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be aware and realistic of what can happen, because when you have your heart beating and you're like, oh my God, that guy's cute, I like him, he looks great, but you have to think up here.
Yeah.
You have to have this functioning first before your heart when it comes to your love life, because it's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's such a small world in any industry.
And the fact of the matter is, in the legal business, the men really do talk about the women.
Every
them.
profession, yes.
And I mean, I can only speak to mine, but
Yeah.
they really do talk about them. And they don't talk about how smart and driven and effective those women are in their cases and in their career and in the courtroom. Instead, they talk about their bodies, and they talk about the sexual experience, or they talk about she's crazy, or whatever they want to say about it.
And that's awful. I'm such a girly girl.
It completely diminishes and disrespects everything that we have done to educate and develop ourselves professionally. And I hate to see that happen. And I just tell the young women, lawyers, I say, listen, this is a dynamic I've seen, and keep that in mind.
Yeah.
When you're making decisions.
It's very important. Yeah. In every profession, in every relationship that you may have in terms of friendship, love life, professional life, we have to be aware. We have to figure out what kind of relationship this is, what it's for. Why do I want to be friends with their person, or why do I want those connections? Because I think it's part of growth.
Yeah.
It's part of our growth process. Because if it wasn't for those moments that I've seen through my other friends, I mean, then I would be like, deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
But luckily I got to see these moments with colleagues and friends where I was like, wow, I never want to date anybody in my industry because X, Y, and Z.
Because we've both seen the negative ramifications that it can have.
Yeah. So I think the tips are, what are the tips, Jeannie?
Well, I think the tips are, if you can manage to fish outside of your lake, your personal pond.
I love that.
I think that that's the wisest thing to do. However, I acknowledge and know that there are some fantastic relationships that do develop within our own careers and professions. And I think it's just, let's do our best to have a conversation up front and be very clear about what we're willing to risk and what we're not willing to risk. And then, just set those boundaries.
Exactly.
I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's important to set those boundaries. It's important to realize, you know what? I'm going to get up. I'm going to go network. I'm going to grow. What positive things are going to happen or impact my life today? Because every day it's like you learn something new.
Right.
So let's not dwell and kind of like have our personalities be, down. We have to get up and go. It's part of life. You just have to keep reaching towards the sun.
Yeah. And I really do agree. And I think another point is that when we feel uncomfortable in a specific workplace, whether it's a partnership, whether, I don't know about your industry, you have to speak to this, but in the legal industry, if we're an employee, an associate attorney somewhere, we're working in a business that where we're not comfortable, we have to listen to ourselves. When you're not comfortable, there's a reason this place is not compatible with you.
Your intuition
And your core values. And you can leave. You can absolutely leave and find another opportunity, go somewhere else and do something different. Because the fact is, I really believe that we should not allow ourselves to remain in a working relationship where we are miserable or we feel like we're, not taken seriously, or we are not treated well. There's no reason to stay. No reason to stay.
There isn't. I think a lot of times everything has to work 2 ways. There has to be some kind of reciprocation in terms of your professional life, your friendship, and your love life, right? If you are at a job and you're like, I need a raise. Okay, why do I need a raise? Is it because I did something more? Is it because I learned something more or I'm bringing in things? Some people just feel like I just need a raise because I need a raise. Things don't work that way. You have to put hard sweat and tears to deserve that raise. Same thing with your friendships, right? Like, I haven't seen my friend in a long time. Well, have you thought of them and said, hey, I miss you. How's it going? Or just relate to them on Instagram so they know that you're still thinking of them in your love life. You know, you have to make those date nights whenever you can, or do something special that your loved one knows that, hey, even though I'm with you every day, I'm doing a little extra for you because I love you. So I think it's a two-way relationship, and we should never just take in too much or give too much. We have to balance that.
Yeah, we definitely need a balance. We have to be filling our own reservoirs at the same time as giving professionally and personally in relationships. And it's just brilliant when you find a wonderful friend with whom you have such a wonderful time, and she fills your reservoir with love and happiness and joy and excitement. And that is you for me, Lucy.
That's a two-way street because I adore you and I respect you. So, Genie, I really love this podcast because I think it's great that we got to share our experiences, you know, from our professional life in terms of career and our personal development in terms of growth. And I think it's important for people to realize that rejection means growth.
Exactly.
It's growth. Rejection, do not take it personal. It's just a sense of growth in your life. Right. And it's not going to be like that forever.
No, you're meant to go a different direction.
Exactly. It's just a shift in your life. I think we have to get going in terms of like what we want in our life and go after it.
Absolutely. So that's a great way to end this one. All right. So why don't we tell everybody that we are incredibly grateful to all of you, our viewers and listeners, for sharing this wonderful relationship that we have. And we can't wait to see you on the next.
Exactly. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our social media, and see you next time.